making these artists famous, and he says, and you're encouraging more of this.
Yes, I got a thank you letter from Annie Sprinkle, who was suggesting that I'd given her a lot of publicity, too. Well, certainly the American people are upset when they hear that their tax dollars have gone to subsidize putting a crucifix in a bottle of urine, or to subsidize things that are so sexually graphic that anyone would be offended by.
But until you raised the issue, he was unknown. Nobody paid much attention. The same with Mapplethorpe.
I think it's an absolute waste of the taxpayers' dollars. I'm an elected official. It's my job to make sure the tax dollar, when we can't come up with funds for prenatal care for poor women, to give Andy Serrano $15,000 to put a crucifix in a bottle of urine is an outrage.
Well, Joseph Papp, how can you not say that's right? Why should the American taxpayer put their money into something that offends most Americans?
Because 25 years ago, the United States Congress and the President thought it was absolutely appropriate for money to be spent for the arts. Now, the arts is very wide-ranging, has a lot of creativity. It'll move here and there, but for the most part, the National Endowment has sustained artistic progress in this country. If you remove the NEA, which Congressman Rohrabacher has been advocating, he would like to see the NEA destroyed completely. If you do that, you will actually wipe out about $2 or $3 billion worth of art product, which travels through the entire country, which makes art available to people who ordinarily would not.
But isn't that true? If you wipe out the NEA, then you're leaving symphony, ballet, museums just for the wealthy?
Well, no. In fact, I have, and Joseph is absolutely right, that I would prefer leaving the money in the hands of the American people and let them decide where their art dollars are going to go, rather than letting the National Endowment for the Arts do it. However, I will grant you that perhaps it would be better, and what I really advocate is providing tax incentives so at least as much money, if not more money, that now goes to the NEA flows into the arts, because we've encouraged people to make those donations. But then the donations are made to art and art projects that the American people decide on, instead of having some peer review panel that's appointed by a government agency decide on.
Joseph Papp, what about that?
Well, when he says a peer review panel, and says it rather disdainfully, these are people in the field that know the background of these people, that have some way of evaluating the work. I don't know how he proposes to put the money into the hands of the American people in such broad sense. We have agencies that have handled it and continue to handle it in an outstanding manner.
But Joseph, we don't need a Ministry of Culture to make our artistic decisions.
We don't have a Ministry of Culture.
We have, you know, they talk about a peer review panel. Just even after all of this controversy, one of the NEA peer review panels has approved a project called Blessed Are the Little Fishes, in which a man gets on stage, urinates into a toilet bowl with a picture of Jesus Christ in the toilet bowl.
This is funded by the NEA?
No, this is what has been approved by one of these NEA peer review panels, and had people like myself not made such a stink about this, it would have been funded.
Let me ask Joseph Papp if you would object to some kind of standard that would put some restriction on the kind of projects in order to save the NEA.
Some congressmen who are frightened at this point because their fear is that Jesse Helms will tar them with the brush of being pro-child pornography, pro-homoeroticism, pro-sadomasochism, and so forth and so on. So they've backed away. There is no way that you can find any language to control the content of art. Once you impose that control on the content of art, what you're doing is restricting the freedom of expression. Now, I'm not advocating these extreme cases that the Congressman Rohrabacher always pulls out of his hat. There are 99% of the cases which are gorgeous, which do involve institutions, which involve symphony orchestras, operas, certain art exhibits that travel throughout the country. The fine work that's been done is never mentioned by these people.
And I think
they always pick the exceptions here and there, and even these exceptions to some people seem acceptable. To others, wait a second, finish my point, Congressman. To others who have certain kind of straight blinders about what is art, what is not art, will find this reprehensible. But do not legislate dissent. What they're trying to do is to find a way to legislate it so people can't speak up. It's a kind of a mind control, thought control, by certain people who have a certain orthodoxy and want the rest of the country.
Well,
I think they're the vocal minority.
Let me ask the congressman.
If I can meet the one point that he made, and that is, I do believe the NEA has financed many fine things. The American people will voluntarily, especially if we give them tax incentives, finance those very same products and projects. But what they won't do is finance some of this anti-religious projects or some of the sexually graphic projects that are morally offensive.
Let me ask you about your bill, which, as I understand it, would deny any kind of government financial aid to a project that denigrates the belief of anybody's religion.
That's
and
correct.
My question is, how does the government decide? Would, for instance, Salman Rushdie's book that the Ayatollah banned be banned in this country because it offends Muslims? And is this what you really want to get into?
I've never suggested banning any of these things.
Well,
I happen to believe that if someone wants to attack Judaism, if you have some stupid anti-Semite, that's his right to speak. Or if he's anti-Christian, he has a right to speak and right to express himself. These people do not deserve government subsidies for their positions, and it's an outrage that some people are getting our tax dollars in order to attack someone else's religion. And I have no apologies whatsoever about trying to stop that.
Only the fundamentalist Christians who are objecting to all this instead of
Well, I'll tell you, the debate on this subject would be far different if it had been a Torah that was submerged in a bottle of urine. It just seems that a lot of people believe that Christianity is fair game, and I don't believe that.
I think that a lot of art has swastikas on it and all kinds of,
well, I don't think that anti-Semitic art or anti-Christian art or anti-Buddhist art deserve a federal subsidy, and we should set standards.
None of the other religious groups are protesting.
Leslie, may I say something on this subject? We have wonderful laws in this country. We have the forefathers left us the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We've done very well over the past 200 more years to impose certain limitations on art, which is the most sensitive barometer of what the thinking is in the country. To try to predict what people do, to try to say, wait a second, Mr. Picasso, you promised this was going to be red and now it turns out to be purple. And to try to control these elements is impossible.
No, we can only control what we spend.
We permit freedom of speech. That's one of the basic fundamental rights we have in this country. We take risks that some of it may not be pleasant to us. We may even object to it in strenuous ways, but we do not create a situation where we either abandon a major arts institution that has become symbolic of American art, which is the National Endowment for the Arts, nor do we begin to legislate and restrict freedom of expression. It's a mistake.
What would happen?
Let's have faith in the American people. Since Rohrbacher wants to use the American people. I think the American people have yet to be heard from on this subject. We have a small band of people who a button was pushed and a lot of letters came out and begin to concentrate all attention at a time when we have so many problems on the question of obscenity.
You know that in Germany they spend $4 billion on culture. The government does, and we're only spending about $175 million.
Well, that's the difference between America and other more statist societies, and that is
Germany?
We spend
West Germany.
West Germany and East Germany. They're a much more statist society. They have a much more statist background. We depend on people, and instead of taxing away all their money and making those decisions for them, we have a tradition in America where people make their own decision on what art they're going to subsidize and what they're not. We spend much more money in the arts than they do in Germany,
Mr.
by
Papp,
the way.
very quickly, the last word. What would happen if there were no NEA anymore?
Well, I'll tell you what will happen in the first place. All the momentum that's been created as a result of just the symbol that the United States is represented by a national endowment will be gone. There's been enough damage done already. A lot of people have been intimidated. I hear people rationalizing things, reminding me of the days of Senator Joe McCarthy. But mostly you will lose maybe $4 or $5 billion worth of artistic product, which is essential to democratize the arts, to bring it out to the majority of people.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. We have definitely lost our time here. Congressman Rohrbacher, thank you.
My pleasure to be with you.
Joseph Papp, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back.
There's just something about a Canon color laser copier. Maybe it's the way it makes drawings come alive.